Twitter sent out, get the bot in here, get the Discord posted, and we should be good. So, hello everyone, this is Chris Ingerson, and it is April 16th, and this is the April 16th TextQuest Devstream. So, today, I'm going to walk on screen now. We're going to be working on custom adventure stuff. Excuse me. Specifically, we're going to be looking at a couple of JSON issues that I ran into when I was trying to load into it earlier, as well as some tooltip updates to hovering over specific objects and having little tooltips show up. That's what we're going to start on, and we'll see how far we get along with those. I'm assuming that won't take too long. And then we're going to go into general UI adjustments for custom adventures. So let's go ahead. Oh, of course, I hit mute audio, but not maximize on play because I'm just the worst. So the main thing, oops, don't need you up. That we're going to start off doing, like I said, is a JSON fix, which I'm pretty sure just happens to be a problem with what was saved last. Let's go ahead and clear this out. Hit start. Go to extras. Author mode. Create. Okay, so you can see that we have these two key not found exceptions. So I want to see what this is first up. Did I see get bool? Get bool. Okay, well, let's go ahead and stop that. So it looks like it's from gamesettings.getBool. What? Game settings 446. Okay, that's interesting. Work with me here. Game settings 44 something. I'm assuming it's this. Okay, what do we have here? So find all references. Settings info, which is a JSON object. Ah, okay. I'm betting it's that. So it looks like it was 446. Yep, 446 right here. So we're going to say this is an old, incredibly old thing that doesn't really need to happen right now. Oof. All right. Well, for the time being, I suppose the simple thing is going to be, I guess we'll say, if settings info, oops, not that, dot contains key, settings, what was it called, settings utility dot get type, so this. Okay, then we're going to try this. Right. So we're going to do that, and then we'll have to say pretty much the exact same thing. It's just going to be this. So we're going to have to say if give me a second here. We're going to say dot contains key, and then whatever this is. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and let that compile. That should fix that issue. So that actually wasn't even related to custom adventure stuff. That was just in the extras menu. It happens. Also, we're going to be doing mostly coding today, and of course I did. No wonder I can't quite hear it. There we go. Sorry, I completely forgot that. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Um, I forgot that. I forgot to change my sound device over before I opened up the Avatar application, and Unity applications do not like changing what their audio device is at runtime. So cool. Well, let's go ahead and see if that fixed it. So that means that I'm not going to be really touching a lot of those. Fortunately, I don't need to really change anything after coding, so let's go ahead and let that compile. It's already done. Let's click through here. Click, click. Okay, we're going to go into Start. Let's go to Extras. Author mode. Say Create. Nice. We don't have any errors. All right. And let's go ahead and find our references here. We need to go to Extras View. I guess actually what we want is on author clicked, which is actually going to get this. Go to definition. So one of the things that I want to make sure I handle properly is when we let's drag this over here. So when we get into our view here, the game select view, we want to make sure that it is only loading the first chunk of relevant data. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click, Show and Explorer, Custom. So this is currently what our data looks like. And from the looks of it, it looks like it was the old data class, or the old JSON, which is fine, because it should be valid still, just formatted awkwardly. So you can see that we have tons of data here, like just lots of it, just the worst. In fact, I'm curious to know how big that is. It is 42 kilobytes. Woof. Compare that to something that does not have any interactable objects in it. I believe it's all just base connections. That's a lot more usable. Anyway, so let's see. Zork. This over here. So what we want to do basically is we want to make sure that we're only parsing like the first level of all of this data, because there's no reason for us on this screen, on this screen to parse everything from every file, when all we really care about is this specifically. Everything else is just set dressing. And the new JSON parser actually supports parsing levels, so we can say like parse the first level, which will parse this content and this content, but not the rooms. That just gets converted into basically like a string. So like all of this is just a string. So that keeps our overall performance hit down because we're only parsing so far. We're not parsing all the way. Of course, it still means we end up parsing a lot of things that don't really need to be parsed, but that's kind of the most optimal way I can think of doing this, aside from coding in a broken way of parsing, just to have it. Anyway, so let's go ahead and double check that that's happening. I think it is right now. I think I did actually set that up. So we're going to go to classic mode view. Really? Hold on. Okay, create button. So I need to go back to here. On create clicked, which is here. Here we are. Go to definition. This is the menu the real menu that we want. Submit. New clicked. Okay, I'm thinking it's in the list here. Let's go to definition. So we have our grids, our label prefix, buttons, scheme buttons. So we're going to say read file. And then currently you can see that we're parsing absolutely everything about it. Now, it's actually nice because the fact that I didn't notice a lag shows that our parser is actually still pretty good in the sense that it just beasted through all of that without me noticing. But long term, especially once we start getting more and more complicated. Okay, that was weird. Once we start getting more and more complicated uh, games, and once players are able to download a bunch of custom games and share them with each other, I would like to ideally speed up the the rate that I can parse that stuff. Or to put it another way, I want to make sure that I can keep down the costs of parsing that information. So parsing only the first level instead of every level will should give us everything that we need. Um, so let's go ahead and peek this definition. You can see that we're looking specifically for this, and we don't care about anything else really. Yeah, that's all we care about. So let's go ahead and stop playing. Come back here. I'm going to parse this JSON, and I'm only going to go to the first level. I think that's all I care about. And it is fortunate for us that all of these, I believe, are strings. Yeah. So even if these wouldn't be parsed in the sense that like they wouldn't be parsed out of their string state, they are still useful. So let's go ahead and we're only going to parse one level. That's all we care about because we only need to get this object. We don't care about like the rooms and all the details and such. And that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and see if that properly parses JSON, gives us our usable information, and handles everything correctly. Then after that, we'll be able to jump into the actual customization and see if we can optimize our UI a little bit, starting with tooltips that are a little bit more responsive. Because I have been working on, let's see, I think I have it up here still. Oh no, I moved them, so yeah, they're going to be gone. Let's go ahead and close some of the stuff that we don't need. So I'm going to open up tooltip rect. And I'm also going to want tooltip label, go to definition, let's drag that over to here. So I've been working on adding support for fading our tooltips so that we can get a nice little bit of fade in, fade out, as opposed to what they were doing before, which was just they would fade. They wouldn't fade. They would just like pop in and pop out of existence, which is functional but not very juicy. It doesn't feel good. So let's go ahead and hit play here. Okay. Click through our screens. Hit start. We go to extras. That was a weird bit of lag. Author mode. We're going to create. You know, I couldn't. Let's go back. Okay. I think we're doing all right. I'm going to try to like move the mouse a lot. It's really hard to do. I basically want to see if it lags, and I think there might be like a little bit, but it's hardly noticeable if it is there. So cool. It looks like all of our relevant information is being parsed correctly. You can see that we got our title, and we have our description there. We also have our proper image loading in. That's good. I probably should add a border around these images so that it's more clear that it's like a separate thing. But it's okay. All right, so that's working. Let's go ahead and open up Dunshire, which cool. We got an invalid cast exception, which is fun. So let's go ahead and stop playing. Let's see what we got an invalid cast exception from. I bet it's something that has been giving me all kinds of problems. So let's go to JSON value. Nope, that's not what we want. We want custom game session 627. Custom game session 627. 627. Here we are. exits array. Are you serious? This is infuriating. So this is something that I've noticed recently. For some reason, it seems like strings aren't being properly so values aren't being properly cast for some reason. It seems to try and cast it to the incorrect value. So what should be happening here is, oh, it's an int. I'm curious if that actually works. So it's possible it tried to convert that into a string because I was concatenating it to another string. If we go through and it's fine here, then it's not as much of a problem. It was just me being silly. But that is still somewhat problematic, actually, because that means that it couldn't cast. Well, I guess that makes sense, actually, because you can't really cast a int to a string. An int can be cast to floats and doubles and all that, but it can't be cast to a string, which makes sense. You have to call toString for that. So let's see if that works. Okay, clear this, and then we're going to hit play once that's done compiling. All right, let's go ahead and play. Start, extras, author mode, create. Let's go to Dunshire. We got a key not found exception. Okay, these are starting to be more sensible to me. Key not found is actually something I would expect given how I was checking it before. Let's see. So this is JSON object, room info right there. Okay. So room info 63. I hate it when it does that. Okay, 63 right here. Room interactions. So what we want to do here is say JSON.contains key question mark. Otherwise, we're going to say a new JSON array. That's all fine. So we want to grab this. All right. I probably should do something similar for everything else. So let's go ahead and grab this. New JSON array. JSON.contains key question mark. Paste that in. Okay. Let's go ahead and let that go. Otherwise, it does look like everything is behaving as I would expect, which is good. Okay. And the main thing about doing this is, one, I haven't actually messed with the custom game stuff since we created the new JSON parser. And I'm curious to see how much the new JSON parser speeds interactions up. I mean, it's already done a marked job of doing that, in the sense that it doesn't seem like we have any loading hiccups when we load into, or we load all of our custom games, which is nice. So let's go ahead and do start extras. Just to be safe, I'm gonna do this. Okay, so there's a minor hiccup, and I'm assuming that hiccup is less from the JSON parser and more from loading these textures into memory. That's probably because I need to come up with a better way of handling that. But all right, let's go to Dunshire again. Okay, we got another key not found exception. Let's see where that is. Room info 56. Ah, you got me again. Okay. Question mark. Else, we're going to make a new JSON array. All right. I think that should do everything that we need. I think everything else will fall into place pretty quickly. Okay. So, looks like everything else, adding that all should work as we would expect. I'm assuming we're actually going to get quite a few of those errors as we load this stuff up. Which is just a consequence of us shifting how we parse JSON. But again, given the performance increase, it's kind of it was a good trade-off. Okay. So I'm going to clear this, hit play. Make sure that my audio wasn't off. I'm always paranoid about that. Start. Extras, author mode, create, Dunshire. Nice. So that loaded up. Created by, change game image. Change house game image for your game. That's all working. Let's go ahead and go to game settings. I think, yeah, so there's our fade in, fade out stuff that's happening. Probably, that's really funny. Probably I should change this. Oh. Do these not all have them? Okay, hold on. So we have the fade in and out actually working pretty well, which is nice. That actually works way better than I was expecting it to. But I don't think we have anything set up on these spots. Oh, dang it. Wrong side. All right. Let's go to destroy unload, UI, view container. I believe we want custom game settings. I think that's what we want. Yep. Content. We are in the info, I believe, currently. Nope. I lied. Oh, that's the button. We want the menus. Info, root, fields, author. Let's go ahead and grab this. So the label, which is a TextMesh Pro label, so it can take some time, has a tooltip rect. Looks like we have everything set up there. Do we not have it on this? Okay, so we just don't have it on the other things. Okay, that makes more sense then. So, which actually does make sense because I know that it wasn't in a state I wanted to put it on everything yet. I wanted to finish working on it, and I just now got around to that. So we need to set up fade in, fade outs, or fade in, fade outs, tooltips for all of these. We also probably want to be able to position them based on not necessarily the pointer position, but the like rect of the parent or of this object. So let's go ahead and open up our tooltip rect script. So we can close these now. And you can see that, let's see, the parent is equal to this, blah, blah, blah. So when we spawn them, basically what we do is we use our mouse position, and then we figure out kind of where that should be. Now, probably what we want is we should change. So So probably what we'll do is we'll make an enum value that will let us specify where you or how you want the tooltip to pop into existence. Do you want it to be based on the position of the mouse cursor, or do you want it to be based on the rect of the parent or of the the tooltip area? So we're going to go ahead and say tooltip rect. I already opened that. I don't know why I did that. I'm going to right click, create, C# script. I'm going to call this tooltip spawn method. Eh. Sure, why not? Of course I spelled it spawn. Can I interest you in a tooltip spawning method? Ugh. Okay, well, let's fix that. Now this is going to be a byte. Well, it's an enum that derives from byte. Let's get rid of this. And we're just going to say rect transform is equal to 0, or mouse position is equal to 5. So we're going to say determines how a tooltip is positioned when it spawns. Position along a rect transforms border. Position at the mouse, at the cursor's position. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back up to tooltip rect, and at the very top here, I'm going to say well, actually, probably I'll put it here. So I'm going to say serialized field, tooltip, protected, tooltip, spawn method. Well, how about spawn position? Equal to the method dot. We're going to do rect transform by default, I think. Determines how the tooltip is positioned when spawning. Okay. And we also need to do a little extra work here. So I'm going to go ahead and let that compile, and then I'm going to play real quick to get a sense of where the pivot for the tooltip is. Currently, if I had to guess, I would assume that my pivot on the tooltip is either in the center or the bottom left. It's probably the center. That's the most likely place. But the reason I'm curious about that is because if we spawn it relative to the to a rect transform, we probably want to have control over its pivot and its position. So position is simple. That's just a matter of changing the anchors, or at the very least having a normalized value from 0 to 1 to determine where on the rect transform we want it to be. And then of course we need extra padding. So there's like a lot of extra steps that we have to have, or that we have to take whenever we want to use positioning based on a rect transform. And it's good to have those values exposed, but that is something that we have to be aware of. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump back in. Also, it is bizarre going between 2017.4, which is what I use for TextQuest, 2018.3, which is something I'm using at work, and 2019.1, which is another thing I'm using at work. So I use 3 different versions of different entire releases of Unity in one day, and that is messes with your head. Create. We're going to go to Dunshire. Let's see here. We're going to go to game settings. We are going to The reason that I say it's kind of weird that it like spawns in like this is you can see that it's like not centered. It seems to be roughly related to where my position is, but it could just be a weird calculation error. So let's go ahead and come up to here, view container, settings, root, tooltip area. Yeah, and this is where it gets problematic. So because I'm having the tooltip show up, there it is. It's at its top left, which is interesting. So because this is happening, it's being parented to a different rect transform entirely. It makes it very difficult for me to put it, excuse me, to position it at the spot that I want. I have to figure out how to do that, and more pressing, I actually have to figure out why my positioning on it is off. You can see that it's not. So if this was being positioned correctly, I would think that the top left would be here. But that is clearly not happening, and that is a problem. So its pivot is 0, 1. That makes sense. Let's go ahead and come down here. We're going to go into update. So we have tooltip is equal to that. Tooltip.show. Okay. We have our mouse position. Adjust for offset. UI. Oh, is that something that I don't have on? Actually, that could be potentially useful. Info, root, fields, author, label. We are adjusting. We are adjusting for canvas offset, but I don't know if we actually need to. UI rect.width. I mean, I would assume we would have to, otherwise things would get super weird. So let's just turn that off just to see what happens. So that did totally spawn somewhere. I'm assuming it spawned like way off base somewhere. I'm very curious to know where it is. It's not okay. Yeah. All right. So we do want to go ahead and leave or adjust it for canvas offset. But okay, now it's correct. Okay. That is really weird to me. Okay, let me maximize on play here. Interesting. So it's Wait. How curious. So it's correct if I'm not in maximize on play, and it's incorrect if I am in maximize on play. That seems irrelevant. That seems like that shouldn't be a thing. That's not great. Do I need to apply scaling? Is that not being accounted for? It might not be. So I'm going to turn off maximize on play. We're going to let that go. And then we'll turn on maximize on play. We're going to let that go. Oh. That makes it kind of hard. Huh. I am really baffled. The mouse position must be being reported incorrectly, which is very infuriating. Cool. That is something I'm going to have to look into. So that's curious. Not really sure why that's happening. Also, hello, William. And the whole cheer squad. I don't know why I said squad instead of train, but squad for some reason made more sense, which is weird because it's always been train. Either way, welcome. We are currently working on tooltips for custom game or custom adventures, and I'm also trying to figure out a baffling problem with offset for some reason. Cheerleaders. Ooh, that's good. That is a good one. Am I a sentient pixel dude? I mean, I can't confirm that, but you never know. It's always safe to assume that people are. In any case, so I'm seeing a weird offset here. This is what I'm currently trying to figure out, which is so when the tooltip spawns, it spawns whenever I hover over this label. You can see that it spawns kind of offset. What it should be doing is spawning with the top left of this tooltip at the cursor position. It's incorrect if I'm in full screen mode. However, if I go into, so if I turn off maximize on play, and then we come back here, boom, it's correct. That is super awkward, and I'm not entirely sure why that is the case. My assumption is that it has something to do with how screen space is being evaluated, because Unity's screen space evaluation technique is always super wonky in the editor. But the problem is we're not really even using screen space. We're grabbing the actual pixel rect of the UI, which is just a canvas. So if we come up here, it should just be basically grabbing these values. In fact, I think I have, oh, nope, that's at work. Oh, well. Sadly, I don't have one of my utilities that I built at work. So basically, our pixel rec should be like 1280 by 720-ish. Should be about that. But for some reason, if we're in full screen mode, it does not seem to evaluate, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just do a real quick check here. I'm going to debug.log UI rect dot, I guess I can just do the width and height. So we'll say width. Let's just do some string.formatting. By the way, how are you all doing? Completely rude of me to not ask. I'm going to say UI width, UI rect.height. And we're just going to do this. Oops. Okay, save that. Let that compile. I mean, long term, this won't really matter as much because we're planning on moving tooltip spawning for these particular menus to not be based on your mouse, but to be based on, well, to optionally be based on either the mouse or what we'll end up doing, which is the rect transform of the label itself, which will basically solve this problem for us. But I would like to know why my mouse position calculations are off if for some reason we're in full screen. That's super wonky to me. Eating some orange chicken burritos. Okay. That is an interesting combination. Reminds me of there was a Korean Mexican fusion place near where I live that did like Korean inspired tacos, which was surprisingly good, but also kind of weird, which I guess is what all fusion places are. So, hmm. I don't doubt it. I'm really curious though. Is it? Well, I guess orange chicken. Well, no, orange chicken is pretty sweet if I'm remembering correctly. At least I always thought it felt, or it tasted a little bit sweet. So is it like less savory and more kind of like a middle ground sweet savory type deal? Go extra author mode, create Dunshire. Let's go to game settings. Yep. Okay. So that's what that means. Let's go ahead and turn off maximize on play. Yep. Cool. So it's the pixel rect is much larger, which is what's causing our offsets. So to make that correct, oh god, that's gonna be terrible. Let me see if I can easily grab this from UI. Nope, because that's also something I made for work. Ugh. Okay. All right. I suppose I can cheat, and I'm just going to do this instead. We're going to want to say... so the problem with this, by the way, is that the pixel rect is incorrect at full screen, and I'm assuming that's because this is a editor-only issue, where it will not look correct in the editor, but I bet at runtime it will always look correct. But it looks wrong in the editor because of how Unity draws its stupid canvases. Ugh, so annoying. Which means that I need to do this. UI dot, I think I want to say like get aspect fitter. Yes dot, hold on, it's been a while. Aspect fitter, aspect ratio fitter, peak definition here. This is not what I want. That's something else. Aspect fitter. What the frig? Oh, that's what that is. Okay. Which I've never actually done before. That is super awkward. Okay. So that's not what I want. What I actually want is... I basically want to get access to my freaking aspect ratios. Do I have anything useful I can do here? Aspect ratio... Nope. Cool. So that means I need to add a function here that will get me that reference, because I don't want to have to search through them all every time. So let's see. Yeah, it's sweet and tangy, but it has some rice, lo mein, green onions, and some sriracha. Nice. That actually does sound really good. I recently made like habanero taco meat, and I've been trying to figure out good ways to use it besides just straight up tacos. And I did do something recently, which was like a uh, habanero taco egg sandwich, which was pretty awesome. It was basically just scrambled eggs with that taco meat thrown in, with avocado on top, and then cheddar cheese on one side with chicken, and then like provolone and turkey on the other, and it was just, it was great. Let's see. I keep finding bugs, and then next to the broken code is to do fix this. Yeah, yeah. Fix this is usually not enough data or enough of a reminder to tell you exactly what the bug was. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say public static. This I'm gonna say UI aspect ratio get current reference resolution. Okay. And what we're going to do is, I really don't like this. I hate that I'm using first or default because that's terrible. I'm actually going to fix that while I'm in here. Ever since I learned that link, system.link is just a giant pile of garbage. Not like it's bad. I mean, it literally generates giant piles of garbage. I've been trying to like get rid of my first or default references. So we're gonna go ahead and say is equal to null, and then we're gonna go ahead. Oh, right, it's a non. Hold on. I'm just gonna have to do that, I guess. And then we're gonna say for int I equals 0, I is less than instance dot aspect ratios dot count I plus plus. What bugs are you currently trying to fix, Garrett, if you don't mind me asking? Better than a comment I read the other day. We do this loop continuously until it fails. The technical term for this is ass. Yeah. At work recently, I started adding debug lines to areas that aren't finished yet. So instead of just being to-dos, it also outputs logs to the console that say like, this isn't done yet, talk to Chris. So that I feel more pressure to actually finish things. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and say if instance dot aspect ratios of I dot aspect ratio is equal to aspect ratio. Oops. Aspect ratio. Okay. then we're going to break out, and we're also going to say ratio is equal to instance.aspect ratios of I. That ratio. There we are. Pretty straightforward there. Okay, so now what we get to do is the really fun part, which is, well, actually I probably should change this. So it's going to say if ratio dot height is equal to 0, which means that it's a new one. Or at least I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, okay. That's all good. Okay. Pausing the game while loading a game. Okay. And think about that. I'm actually curious, how do you set up your controller for menu controls? Like what object has the script that listens for the key press to pause the game? Because in Text Quest, it's on the player character. That way you can't pause when the player character doesn't exist. But I'm curious to know what other people's approaches are on that, actually. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than instance.aspect ratios .count I plus plus. And worst comes to worst, we're just going to go ahead and return instance.aspect ratios 0. So the first aspect ratio we have. Singleton game manager type object. Okay. So then when you transition back to like the main menu, do you just tell it to ignore player input? So it knows the full state of the game. Wait. So the singleton that knows the full state of the game is what's listening for the player input? For pausing and such? All right, and all we're going to do here is say if, and here's where it gets fun. Actually, how was I setting this before? I'm like 90% sure. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Cool. So this is, what a terrible, terrible thing. Which I guess actually just means I need to do this. I'm just going to grab this, pretty much this entire thing actually. We're going to move this. I'm just going to duplicate this. Grab this. We're going to call this get reference resolution. We're just going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to, at the very end, return ratio. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and get rid of, keep that there because I'm paranoid. We're pretty much just going to do this, get rid of this, and we're just going to, so we're actually going to get rid of this, and we're going to say is equal to get reference resolution, aspect ratio, stop that, aspect ratio. Okay, like that. Pretty straightforward, makes it easier on me, and it means now that I can just do this. Return get reference resolution, there we go. And then we're just going to go ahead and pass in screen extensions dot aspect get aspect ratio. Oh, nope. I think it's current aspect ratio. Screen aspect ratio, there we go. Okay, so that should be correct. Let's go ahead and do that. And that means that now I can come back all the way to here to do what I was originally going to do, which is UI.get current reference resolution. And then we're just going to go ahead and do this. This is awful. So we're going to say, what does that return? It's a UI aspect ratio. That's what I called it. UI aspect ratio. Ratio is equal to that. Grab that. We're going to get rid of this. And then we're going to go ahead and say, instead of UI rec.width, we're just going to say ratio.width and ratio.height. And that should work. In theory. It's always a deeper problem than I think that it's going to be. What's really annoying is that, like I said at the beginning of all that, I'm reasonably sure that if I put this into an actual build, it would be correct every time. Actually, you know what? Maybe that's not right, because if I'm grabbing the pixel rect, I bet that would shift. So, okay. So this way should be what we need then. Should give us a consistent size for our offset. Okay, let's click through here. I go to extras, author mode, create, Dunshire, game settings. Crap. Really? Now let's go into full screen mode. Okay, so it's doing neither of those things that I need. Interesting. Our current UI is 1280 by 720. That makes sense. If we look at our aspect ratios, that's 16 by 9. So, interesting. Right. Ugh, jeez. All kinds of problems. So if I want this to be accurate, I think what I'm going to have to do is change how mouse position is retrieved. Because it's retrieved in pixel coordinates, which is something that has to be offset. Oh, goody crap. Okay. Cool. So that means that I have to do a whole bunch of jump through a whole bunch of hoops. That essentially means that I want to convert my mouse position into the actual coordinates for the crap. What do I want to call this? For the rect transform, which is going to complicate things so much. Okay, so let's see here. What that's going to entail is essentially I need to. So I have my mouse position, and then I need to normalize those values and then denormalize those values into coordinates on the parent canvas. Okay. So that is going to basically amount to this. So we are going to need this to be done here. And then we are going to want, let's see. I think I'm going to need screen extensions dot. Are you going to give me like the screen width? No. Nope. But this is using the code that I need, which is essentially going to be. Yeah, hold on. Let's just go to screen extensions. So, basically what I need to do is I need to grab this. I have to check screen.width, which will get me something. Really? That's the only place I have it referenced? That seems incorrect. Machine, API tester. Okay, well, let's go ahead and collapse a bunch of stuff until we get to something that's actually useful to me. Let's see. Cursor overlay is using our screen width. That's all correct, I think. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Screen extension, screen resolutions are not really giving me much there. So All right. So I'm going to have to grab the width and height of the screen, which is a little annoying. So that's basically going to amount to this. We're going to say vector 2 screen size. This is a lot of math for the. Ugh. I was hoping it would be nice and easy, but nope. Okay, so we're going to create a new vector 3, or vector 2. We're going to say screen.width, screen.height. And let's see here. These are ints, I think. Yep. Which means I could probably make these ints, I suppose. Might as well. Not that it really matters. Okay. So what that gives us is we now will know our aspect ratio. So the width and height of our canvas. We will know the width and height of our screen. And we will know our mouse position. And we're going to have to use all of that to basically position everything to where we expect it to be. Oh boy, that is gonna be a thing. Updated Unity Hub and it started crashing every time I launched it. Turns out it had deactivated. Wait, so like Unity Hub had deactivated itself and was just failing every time you tried to launch it? That's weird. Huh. All right. So what we're going to do here is we are going to set. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. So we need to take our mouse position and convert that to a normalized value based on our screen size, which means we're going to want to. I'm gonna make this a separate vector for safety right now. I could probably get away with not having this later on, but adjusted pose is equal to vector 3.0, but we'll have it be separate for now for our convenience. Deactivates your license? Gross. Huh. Well, yeah, that's weird. I don't know why it would do that. Although I have had something like that happen before to me where I think updating Unity Hub did deactivate my license, but it could also have been a coincidence because it happened when I updated, I think, when I first downloaded like 2018. So it could have just been like a version problem, not a hub problem. And that was obviously a while ago. So, okay, so we're going to need to adjust our values here. So we're going to say adjusted pose.x is equal to, here comes the fun part. So we need to normalize our value, which means we're going to do mathf.inverse lerp from 0 to our screen size dot x. Then we're going to be using our mouse pose dot x. Okay, that gives us our normalized position, and then we need to use that to go from, so we're going to say mathf.lerp from 0f to screen size dot width. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's right. No, I'm sorry, not screen size. To ratio dot width based off of that value. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and do that 2 more times. Well, actually only 1 more time because we don't really care about x or about z. So we're just going to say that's equal to 0. Okay, let's see. Ratio height size y based on y. Okay, and then from there, I think we can set our mouse position and then I'm actually going to go ahead and debug all of this out. So I'm going to say debug.log string.format. And this is going to be 0, 1, line 2. That's probably good. Actually, hold on. This should probably be 2. Change this up a little bit. 3. And then new line 4. Let's see. Anyway, yes, I use a singleton game controller that checks for escape presses. It checks the game state to see if it's okay to pause the game, show UI, etc. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I always like talking about other developers' workflows just because sometimes you can get some really interesting ideas out of that. All right, so our first thing is going to be our mouse position, .to vector string, because I want to see like actual detail in there. Second thing is going to be just our ratio dot width. Oops, dot width. Our ratio dot height, followed by screen size dot to. Oh, right, it's a vector int. Yeah, that's fine. They're int values, and then adjusted pose dot to vector string. Okay, so I'm gonna get all of that information out. That should give me something useful, or at the very least it should let me know what my values are. And then I can see if my values are just like way off base or if they seem correct. Because even if my adjusted position is correct, I'm willing to... Oh, actually, you know what? You can probably check that real quick. Also, I can fix this name, because it shouldn't be called Spawn. It should be called Spawn. Except it compiled, so now I have to wait. Come on, Unity. I believe in you. Although, given the evidence tonight from Garrett, I probably shouldn't. Okay. Okay. There we go. You're going to work with me here. So we're going to go ahead and select our UI. We're going to open up our views. And I believe I want custom game settings. Okay. Custom game overview. What? No, it should be settings, I thought. Oh, it's probably right here. Let's see. Ugh, it's torture having a project that takes so long to compile. Speaking of taking so long to compile, I finally went through yesterday and I cleaned up all of my code warnings from like third-party assets. So I just cleaned house yesterday, basically, which was very refreshing because I got rid of several. Yeah, here's the fun part. I got rid of several assets that I'm not using anymore, and I always love tearing things out of the project that aren't actually being used anymore. Let's see. So we have our info button and info menu. This is what I want. The author input fields is not, well, it's not good enough. Okay, so I gotta drag this in. Put this down here. Hilarious, I already had one up there. Content, menus, info, root, fields, author, label. Okay, we're gonna come down here. Tooltip display. Alright, it should be fine. I was gonna... Oh, right, that's what I was checking. Tooltip area. Is this anchored and pivoted? It's not, so we'll see how that reacts. I might end up changing the pivot point of that anchor area to be at the bottom left. That way it behaves like you would expect. Because if I keep it centered like it currently was, it will... The correct position will be incorrect because of the pivot, basically, for lack of a better way of phrasing that. So let's go ahead and go to extras. I don't like that I can't hear it, which is probably because of menu cameras now that I think about it, which is interesting. Okay, so we're going to go to author mode. We're going to create Dunshire, game settings. We're close. So you can see that it's kind of offset a little bit. which is, well, let's see why. Okay, so our two values in the center remain the same, which makes sense because that's screen information. Our actual mouse position does change a little bit, but it does get normalized to a relatively small degree. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. I'm going to try it. Okay, nice. So even though it is offset a little bit, you can see that it is at the very least spawning consistently between these things. So it's always going to spawn. It looks like with the cursor slightly above the E in the. So let's go ahead and turn on maximize on play. See if that's correct. Oh, so it's a little offset. Um, hmm. Which I suppose probably has to do with just the way that the mouse position is being calculated. Because again, if you have this exact same mouse position in both screens, the pixel density. Well, no, because the pixel. Oh, the pixel density isn't the correct term. The pixel amount of the rect is still different, but also it should be wider, which means that it would actually, I think, average out. So I'm not entirely sure what to do here. Because I think, am I just setting the actual position? I am just setting the actual position, which is always a weird thing to do on anchored positions or on rect transforms. Sorry. Like you can see that it's close. Oh, oh, oh. Okay, I think I know what's happening. It's the counter scaling. It's the scaling that happens because of screw you, you gooey. It's this. Hold on, where are you? Cursor overlay. It's this. Where are you? It's this whole song and dance where I basically have to um, like add an offset to make sure that the screen's width and height doesn't throw any of my calculations off. That's why it was farther away when I was toward the edge of the screen. This is a very common thing, and it's very frustrating in Unity. I really, really do not like that it does that. Also, I'm pretty sure I can do this now. Really? Yeah. Pretty sure I can just do that. I'm optimizing my code a little bit. Oh my goodness, if I could type and navigate, but I can't. Also, that's not really going to help me, but whatever. Okay. So I basically need to apply counter scaling vis-a-vis these, which is frustrating. Let me think. So I want to say pose x divided by screen width minus 0.5. Yes. So I basically want to do that, and then do I have to calculate all this again? Oh man, that is not fun. I really should make a generic function to just convert vectors into their correct values based off of the screen. Let's see if we can just get away with this bit. I'm hoping that we can. No, I probably don't need the 0.5, I don't think. Or do we? Because position X is going to be... So it's going to be... Here. We have our adjusted position. And that's basically going to amount to me doing this, which is mouse pose.x is equal to... So clamping it to 1 makes that less useful, I feel. But I guess I just do that as erect size so we just do a normalized value. That's all we're doing there. And then why would I minus? Oh, that's because it's centered, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't think. Okay, so we're just gonna pretty much do that, which is kind of what I was already doing here, I guess. Yeah, except that's actually a more straightforward way than what I was doing. I don't know why I did such a complicated method. Um, okay, so I can probably simplify that to just be, let's see, because then we're doing that, which is, again, like the exact same thing. And then we want to offset x. Okay, so this should have essentially been doing it already, but I guess I'll do this in the exact same way just to be safe. So I essentially want to say like screen. I'm sorry, no. So we're going to say it's equal to mouse position dot x divided by screen size dot x. Okay, and then we're going to say times our size. So we're going to say times screen size dot x, if I could find the x key. So that should essentially do the exact same thing. I don't think I need to worry about this offset, but I might. We'll find out. Okay, so we're going to copy this, paste that, and this is just going to be dot y, dot y, dot y, except that should be ratio dot width, shouldn't it? Yeah. And ratio dot height. Okay. So let that compile. See how that looks. I gotta tell you, I do not like how Unity's UI is handled sometimes. Um, in particular, I really hate the whole like delta scaling as you get closer or you get farther and farther away from the center of the screen. That really drives me nuts. I really hate that. If you're ever doing any sort of draggable implementation, like drag and drop interfaces, um, that scaling of the delta is the bane of your existence. You basically have to make sure, like you just straight up can't use mouse position. You have to do all of these hoops to counter scale and bring its value in to make sure that it's not just getting like larger and larger as you move away from the center of the screen. It's ridiculous. I really do not understand why Unity does it like that, but that's what it does. Also, I might need to do the -5 now that I think about it, but we'll see. So extras, let's go ahead and maximize on play. Author mode, create, Dunshire, game settings. It's the exact same. It's the exact same. Okay. Let me think. I'm pretty sure I have a draggable that I made. And I'm hopeful this is actually going to handle it. Transform local scale. Delta. Nope, this is the old way of doing it. Hey. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't think that we needed this -0.5, but maybe we did. Let's try it. See if that works. So that's basically just that -0.5. Yeah. Let's go ahead and wrap all of that. I really don't think that's quite going to work, but let's try to do anything else that we have here. Times view rect. That should work. Okay. We could possibly get away just by applying the scale of the root transform to this as well. We'll see. because this is definitely a matter of the screen. Like the issue that we're seeing is because of just how Unity evaluates position along the screen, which is infuriating, and I really wish they would standardize. Well, not standardize. I wish they would fix this so it's more intuitive. It's very stupid that I have to apply so much counter positioning to get things to be correct. It is the bane of my existence. In any case, thank you for the follow, Ralph. I guess, should I call you just Ralph, or would you like your full name of Ralph 12? I was going to say 12. So would that be 124C, or to be 124C and then 41? I'm always terrible at pronouncing everyone's names. At least I can pronounce the individual components of your name, but I'm always curious to know how people prefer it. Time to go do some work? Well, good luck on your work. I will be here pounding my head against the keyboard, probably. Thanks for stopping by, though. All right, so let's try this, see what we get. So what's really frustrating about this is that I have written a actual good algorithm for this at work. It's not an algorithm, make that sound fancy. A good function, basically, for applying this counter scaling and positioning. So I know that I know how to do this. It's also just been so long that I've forgotten how I did it. So we're going to go to Dunshire, game settings. Yeah, okay, so I don't want to do the -5. I do need to apply the counter scaling, though. Oh, actually... No, it's not that. It's because I was doing local position. But I could try that. Let's see. I need to grab my cursor overlay. Let's see. Just Ralph is fine also. Nice. Huh. Okay. Cool. It has been critically panned for its inept writing. Oh dear. Well, now I'm curious. Huh. All right. Anyway, what I was going to do here is I wanted to tell. Let's see. My root is. That's why we had them. Okay. So we can get rid of that. That's not actually helpful. Let's go ahead and save this. We're gonna go back here, and so we could try doing local transform and see if that works. That would be all kinds of weird, but it's conceivable. Also, I'm dying, apparently. God, the stupid cough is not going away, which is very annoying. That all looks fine. Okay, so let's try doing this. We're going to go back to tooltip rect. We get our adjusted position. We set our mouse position to be equal to that. And then we're going to go ahead and say, I don't want to just do this, but I can't really think of a better way to handle this. So I just need to apply a counter scale, which is frustrating. Let's see, event data, root canvas transform dot local scale. So I want my So essentially what I need to do is I need to divide something by this local scale, but I don't know what value that's going to be here out of all of these things. I suppose it would be screen size, if anything. So we're going to go ahead and say divided by UI dot rect transform dot local scale dot x. Why are you so mad? Fine, be that way. I guess we're going to make this a vector 2. And we're just going to do that because apparently that'll work. See if that applies appropriate counterscaling. I'm pretty sure I wanted to do it that way and not to multiply it. Worst comes to worst, I can always examine what my code was at work, just to give myself a refresher. Because I think doing it this way is not actually correct. At least I'm pretty sure. Might have made this like draggable area. Yeah, this seems a little bit more correct. Possibly. Possibly not. Then again, this looks super old, so. That's my problem. My code base is too old. I got old code that I'm not using anymore that's similar to new code that's more correct, but I don't remember which of them is the one that I want to use offhand. Ooh. And that's why I decided to clean house yesterday, because I need to get rid of a lot of old code. Okay. Oh, hold on. So that's hovering over the E a little bit. And that's still hovering over the E. Okay. Good. So that is correct. That means we're getting consistent values. It's always over the E. Am I getting different heights? Nope. Consistent heights, consistent X placement. Cool. Which means that I need to just figure out what this last bit of distance is. I'm reasonably sure it's not about multiplying it, but we can try that real quick. So let's go ahead. I'm going to say times that. Reasonably sure that's not what I want, but we'll see. Oh, and what's really great about this is that even after we solve our positioning problem, we'll have to, in addition to positioning it to the mouse, provide a counter positioning to make sure that it doesn't ever really like slide off screen, which is going to be a bit of a challenge. Not the worst thing in the world, but it's something that we have to be aware of. Let's go ahead and play that. Click through, start, extras, author mode, create, Dunshire, game settings. Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. So divide is correct. But the question there then becomes, what in the world is our offset happening for? I don't really know what offset values it seems to have. These are not useful to us, so let's go ahead and let that go. I'm pretty sure we're dividing everything correctly, so it's always mouse pose X or mouse pose Y by screen size Y times ratio height. That's all correct. Could it be rounding errors? No, that seems like that would be incorrect. Screen size, adjusted pose. Maybe mouse pose also needs to be handled like that. That would kind of be what this is almost doing, kind of, but not really. No, it's not that. Let's see what my values are, so I can tell exactly what it's being set to. So let's go ahead and over there. All right, let's see here. So UI, view container, custom game settings, root, tooltip area. Our tooltip is, this is not what I care about. Okay, so our tooltip's adjusted position is 304.471, which I think is, if we go to debug, I think we'll see our actual position. Or not. Okay, so that's less useful. So it's hard to tell exactly what is going on here. It is consistent, at least, although I would be more confident if I had some labels on the far right that I could test against, just to be sure. Name of the person who... So I'm reasonably sure it's not a matter of the content. Its position is not... So it's not offset by the size of my reticle. That's not correct. It's almost there. It really is. It's just not quite right. Let's see. So our mouse position, it does get scaled, which makes sense. Screen positions are weird, which is believable. Okay. What to do about this? It's something small, which is why I'm having difficulty thinking about it. It's always something small that gives me the biggest problems. Let's see. Oh, here we go. I think it might be that. Do I want to adjust that? Let me think. That would make sense, actually. So let's try that. I'm just going to go ahead and say float width is equal to ratio.width divided by ui.recttransform.localscale.x. Float height is equal to ratio.height divided by ui.recttransform.localscale.x. Why do I keep hitting say? And I think what we want to do here is we want to just make this be width and height. I think. Okay, so let's try that. Except that feels like that's going to make it blow even farther away. Maybe we need to multiply that. Well, let's find out. Maybe I need to make this width and height as well. Because I would like to be able to get this functional tonight, because then I'll celebrate. I'll scream into the air. I will burp into my mic, apparently, because I'm very rude. Alright. While that's going on, I'm going to take a drink. Oh, yeah, so the Fmod Unity code is actually a lot more sparse than I thought it was going to be. I dug into the code to make my own custom Fmod sound listener, and, like, their whole code base in the C# parts is kind of a mess. Like, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's less professional than I was expecting, which very much makes me think that they hired someone to do it, or just like one of their devs did it, and their devs did not have a ton of experience with Unity. So they just like left some things going for some reason. It's kind of weird. It's always super weird seeing tools that you assume almost every um, well, not every, but a lot of developers use, especially a lot of complicated tools like Fmod that have just kind of almost laughable uh, code execution. Author, create, Dunshire, game settings. Yeah, so that's more extreme. So I actually want to multiply it. That is the most awkward thing ever. Really, I need to multiply. So I need to divide the scale for the screen, but I need to multiply the scale or the size of the actual rect transform. Ugh, that can't be right. If that's correct, I'm gonna be so mad. It's bare bones, pretty much a flat layer on. Yeah, that is very true. A lot of their stuff is on the C++ interface. I still haven't really done as much with Fmod as I would like, honestly. Um, like I was able to write my own sort of wrapper for grabbing the data from Fmod, but and like I said, I made my own custom sound listener or Fmod listener. But there are still a couple of things that I don't like. For example, you might actually see it pop up in the error log here, but maybe you don't. It's all sector. I get like index out of range errors that get thrown all the time that I think have to do with how Fmod initializes all of its listeners and the fact that it's not a freaking list. It's like an array of a set size, and it's madness the way that they handled that. I do not understand why they did it that way. Um, okay, we're gonna go to extras. Let's go to author mode. Create. Dunshire game settings. Oh, okay. That's actually worse. And it's actually back to offsetting it. So that is not the correct approach, which is unfortunate. Which the offset, so the subtraction is what's getting us right now. I think. So maybe I need to do this. I really hope this is not what I actually need to do, but knowing me, knowing my luck, it is. Let's go ahead and say times. Let's see what that does. Because I think the problem is that it's just slightly overshooting. And I think that's just because at some point, because I'm applying counter scaling to the screen, I'm not applying that counter scaling to the actual UI, which throws things off. Oh, wait. Is that my problem? I don't know, because I actually, he's not there. Maybe I need to apply counter scaling to the mouse position as well. No, that doesn't make sense. Set this up. Extras, author mode, create, Dunshire, game settings. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Haha! Now let's go into not maximize on play. There it is. So that is apparently what you have to do to set up proper positioning on tooltips based on the cursor with their UI setup. Oh my god, Unity, why? Okay, so that math boils down to grabbing the mouse position, grabbing the current actual size of the canvas rect, grabbing the size of the screen and dividing that by the scale of the canvas rect, then adjusting positions um, by basically normalizing and then using that normalized amount to find the adjusted value on the size based on the actual size of the canvas. And then when you actually position them, when you apply an offset, you have to multiply the width by the scale of the freaking canvas. This is ridiculous. This is ludicrous. Why would it require this many steps? Who at Unity wrote this and is like, yeah, that seems right. That seems like what people want to do. No, no Unity. Jeez. Ugh. Very frustrated sometimes. Okay. So cool. So we got that working. We didn't get the rect-based transform stuff spawning though, which is going to be a whole other thing, I'm sure. So I think we might end up ending it there. I'm going to do a little bit more research on one, seeing if I can find a better way of counterscaling than doing all of these steps, which is just stupid. Like this is an insane amount of convert. This is a lot of math that has to be processed just because. Also, we don't really care about our adjusted position, do we? Because we don't pay attention to it ever. So that's a pointless thing. But yeah, like this whole thing is so much effort just to get Unity's UI to behave. I really should come up with a generic way of doing this, and I will probably look into that. Like just being able to have a function call in an extension class that's like get position for UI. I don't even know. But it is utterly ludicrous that I have to do. What is this? This is like 10 lines of code, almost. Well, no, it's closer to what? 8. It's 8 lines of code. 8 lines of code to adjust mouse position to make sure that it's correct, which is just ludicrous. Utter ludicrous. Okay. So that is a pretty good place to stop for the night, I think, before my head explodes and just like that scene from Scanners. So announcements. I should be on schedule to have my normal Devstream on Thursday, so I will be back at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And let's see, anything else? Saturday I should be able to do my dev stream, but I have a friend coming in from out of town. We'll see we'll see if he's still around when I do my dev stream. If that's the case, I probably won't do my dev stream on Saturday. I'll probably do it on Sunday. And again, just as like a way in advanced warning, or not warning, announcement, I'm going to be showing up at ASEN in Rosemont, Illinois, near Chicago, May 17th through the 20th, I believe. So if you're up in the Anime Central area and you want to stop by and see all the cool independent games that are being shown off there, feel free to do so. Stop by the booth and say hi. Get yourself a button. All right, I think that's pretty good for the announcements. So, as always, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.